They're very soft, aren't they? Oh, that's nice.
Isn't that lovely?
God, I can't hear you hold that long. No, I hope not. How do you feel about being the main act? That was quite amazing with the main act today.
Well, it was the first
I'm
for
just
everything,
getting.
I suppose.
There's a lot of me.
You're doing
I'm just
side
getting.
saddle, aren't you?
I'm doing side saddle because there's a lot of me to get organised here. Darling, before we start, I just would like to say a very big thank you to Glenn for today, of course, but for everything that Glenn does for us at Alva. We've just had a beautiful Vivid cruise a couple of weeks ago. We were looked after magnificently and everything was as smooth as silk, wasn't it, Gail? Darling, this is our lovely Alva treasurer here, Gail Wakeling-Taylor. And just wanted to say thank you to Glenn for his support for many, many, many years now. Really, really appreciate it. We all do, so thank you very much. And want to say thank you too to you, darling. This is day two of the tour.
It is a tour, really, isn't it?
Craig came up to the Central Coast yesterday for our very first Alva toe in the water, see how it goes Central Coast Day. Drove up in the pouring rain.
But you weren't sitting side saddle up there.
No, I wasn't. Was I astride there?
I tried not to notice.
I can't remember. I might change position.
Sometimes it's good not to remember, Susan.
I know. Well,
Comes
we
in
were
very
talking about
handy.
yesterday anyway. So we had a lovely day and here we are today. So thank you for coming all
Cigarettes,
the way.
holding hands and yawning. Look how late it gets.
That's right. And we had a surprise. I won't claim that. Tony Stevens was the perpetrator of the surprise. There was two people there that Craig has been friends with for 100 million years.
And they're in the book.
And they're in the book, and it was wonderful to see the sting when you walked in, and that was Judy Nunn and Bruce Venables were at our day yesterday, and
They were indeed.
Craig knew nothing about it.
And it's a day they'll never forget, I'm sure.
I'm certain of that. Because of the surprise of
That's
you,
right.
darling. That's
all
right.
that Chardonnay and the surprise.
That's
well,
right.
That drank,
That's
actually.
right.
It was to overcome
So,
the shock.
all of that done. We're going to get started now. The very exciting thing, and the thing that's unusual about Craig and the book is that we're going to find out and let you know, first of all, where it all began. Now, this is a really, I know you want to be closer to me.
I just think it's better.
Is that all right?
As you're the Barbara Walters of the Debonaires.
I know. Does this mean we're practically engaged?
The electricity is now almost palpable.
Is Captain Craig all right with that?
Totally.
We're engaged?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, you know, Helen Zerafos has this torrid affair going with my husband in the frozen food aisle at the Coles.
Well, they need to be put
Savannah
down somehow,
supermarket.
don't
I
they?
know. So that's all right. Craig has a very interesting and quite extraordinary beginning to his life.
Do I?
Yes, you do. And they were spellbound yesterday. I'm going side saddle now, looking up Steve. They were spellbound yesterday, so I think they're going to be spellbound today. Take it away.
Where would you like me to begin, Miss
The
Susie?
bus shelter.
Oh, the bus shelter. Oh my gosh, yes. Well, it's interesting, you see. Who believes in psychics? Yes? Tarot card readers? Well, it's a funny thing. Who remembers Elaine Lee, the fabulous Elaine Lee, from Number 96 and so much else? She had the extraordinary adventure of working with the great Lauren Bacall in Sweet Bird of Youth. Some might remember. Stories are in the book. They are Bobby Dazzlers, I can assure you. I went to see Elaine for a completely unrelated issue. A fabulous, incredible tarot card reader as was proven, because when I walked in, she said, "You were adopted, Craig. You were orphaned, Craig." And I said, "Oh, the first part, yes, absolutely. My parents were very upfront and honest about that I was adopted, but orphaned, I had no idea about that." And she said, "Yes, and I'm getting here that you were found in a bus shelter in Ramsgate, in a bus shed, in a basket, having been abandoned." And I can't, yes, Moses, that's right, without the bulrushes. I put that aside, thinking, well, the adoption bit, I know the rest of it all sounds quite extreme and extraordinary, quite bizarre. I chronicle this in the book, and my mother, having read it, said, "No, the story is not quite that." And then she went to tell me what the story was. And the story is that my biological mother and my biological father were not married. And back in the 60s, this, considering that they were quite religious, was very shameful and shocking to be unwed and to be with kinder. in Tum was just almost too much. And so my mother, biological mother, moved to Queensland. It's a bit like Days of Our Lives. I hope you're in and settled. You got the smelling salts, and overnight a sleeping bag, perhaps. I'll move it on. It is a bit like that.
Yours an upjob.
Oh, well, there you go. So my mother moves to Queensland, obviously to have me, and the plan was to put me up for adoption. My biological father thought, oh no, I need to go up there. As he's heading up the highway, he has a head-on collision with a bus and is killed. And 2 weeks after my mother gave birth to me, see, Lynn, the story is true, isn't it? Word for yesterday, I don't rehearse anything. And she goes for a swim after having given birth to me in the ocean on the Gold Coast, and she drowns. So indeed, I was orphaned, just to let you know that the fabulous Elaine Lee, not just an amazing talent, but somebody who was extremely perceptive with her cards. So the bus shelter bit, I can only imagine, as I wasn't found in a bus shelter, it must have been from my father having had a head-on collision with a bus. Not sure where the shelter came from. You can't get it 100%, but what an amazing story.
She was definitely on track, wasn't she?
She was certainly on track.
Yeah,
Extraordinary story.
And you've had a lovely life with beautiful parents.
Oh, of course. I wouldn't think about it any other way.
And that's wonderful. That really is wonderful. And you grew up in Ramsgate, is that right?
I did.
Just up
absolutely.
the road.
So again, there she was absolutely right about that too. Just the bus shelter being found in a basket. One of these days we'll work it out. It's quite extraordinary.
I think that is to come.
That's right. Well, I mean, you can't have everything at once.
No.
It's nice to have the cliffhangers rolling on through life.
I know. When we find out about the basket and the bus shelter, we'll put it on the Facebook page.
If anybody's found a basket, may have contained me at one point.
We'll send an email.
Please let us know. I'm sure it was a little blue gingham lining, I think she said.
With lace around the edges.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss not to have had the lace.
Fast forward to a teenager, and when Craig was a young teenager, he had rather I still want to say unusual and a little bit eccentric hobby, and it involves his snake.
That's right, it does. Or plural, as a matter of fact, because I was greedy, I preferred more than one snake.
More than one and very large.
That's right, yes. Well, not necessarily, but there were occasions when they were very large. You'd sometimes need several people to handle them. That's how large it was. As a young kid, I did collect snakes, and I was very fortunate with my parents that this didn't seem too horrendous for them to cope with. Every weekend they were used to be rolling through the front door saying, "Guess what I've found, Mum? Guess what I've found, Dad? Yes, dear," thinking it might be a lizard or a butterfly or something or other. One day I do romp through the front door with a 9-foot diamond python around the neck, and there were momentary shrieks of horror, but once that was overcome, suddenly snakes were my thing. So that's from a very young age. I would say about 10 or 11.
You found the python at Ramsgate?
I found it in the bush. No, I was living at St Ives at this point.
Oh, all right. Where was it at Ramsgate? You were up there.
No, I know you were worried about that.
I was worried.
Is it still on the loose in Ramsgate?
Well, it could be, because there's that, where the freeway was supposed to go through, all that area there at Ramsgate.
Well, you're safe. It wasn't there.
Right.
Maybe
Sorry
somebody else's snake could have been there. It could be terrifying. I'm not quite sure, Susie. Well, I mean, with your fabulous client bumping into Helen Zerafos in the
frozen
foods department at Coles. I mean, the mind seriously goes round like lemons in a poker machine, keeping up with all this. In any event, yes, so it was snakes that led me to a life in show business.
It was, because yesterday we discovered how this connection happened. I don't know if anybody else has seen, I'm not sure if it was Mark's Facebook page or just YouTube or something, Don Lane, whatever. There is footage of Craig on the Don Lane show with the snake. And we were searching for it yesterday, but didn't find it in time, of course. So the journey from finding the snake to actually appearing on the Don Lane show. Tell us about that.
I was all of 16, 1977. And I brought 2 of them down, as a matter of fact. And in those days, to get on a plane was like getting on a bus. You know, you didn't have to check anything. You could carry water. It was proven I could carry 2 pythons in my hand luggage, which indeed I did. Just swept on. There they were in the old TAA bag or whatever it was, tucked up in pillowcases. And the Don Lane show back in those days, I mean, the great days of variety television, how we miss them, how they should still be with us. but in that old true sense, with one of the greats like Don as host. I mean, the green room was awash with stars. They poured real champagne, not just something with bubbles in it akin to nail polish remover. And there was Bert Newton. I think back then he had his own hair before it became a bit of roadkill or something. We love Bert, but he's very candid about all of this. And Don was just the consummate professional, and they were great days. Mind you, we only had 4 television stations, didn't we, back then?
And no internet.
And no internet, that's right. And even
Before
the ads
that.
were interesting back then.
Yes, before all that.
And really that's how it began, and all these years on, still standing, if
I
you can
know.
believe. That was sitting at the moment,
Yes,
which is always
on the new
comfortable
chairs.
on the new chairs.
There was an article in the local newspaper up at St Ives
There
about the
was.
snake, and somebody from that magic word, or is it a dirty word now, from the research
Oh,
department
yes,
at
that's
Don
right, they
Lane.
did that.
Don Lane Show picked up on it. I mean, the people, anyone under 30 doesn't know what the word research means these days. So they picked up on that, and that's how the connection was made to get Craig and the Snakes from St Ives down to Melbourne in a new outfit.
Oh, look, I've
In the
never been
very
on a
best-
plane before.
The best outfit
Of
yesterday.
course, my mother went somewhere and she bought some beautiful Bogart trousers and a lovely shirt, and the shoes were polished, even new underwear. Seriously? Well, you just never know, do you? I think, frankly, considering what I was handling, other people should have had the clean underwear. But in any event, they were great days, and that's really how it all began. How the newspaper discovered me is because I was quite eccentric as a youngster and would float around the St Ives shopping centre with the python draped around my neck.
If you can possibly imagine
If
Craig
you can
being
imagine it.
eccentric
I know.
as a youngster. I know.
Well, Alice Cooper did it for years,
I
didn't
know,
he?
I know. He saw you first, though.
Danny LaRue did it with feather boas.
That's right.
Mine
They
just
saw
had
you
scales.
first. They saw you first. Now, there was this wonderful time that you decided what were you going to do? You did want to be a vet for a moment there, but
Well,
what were you
animals
going to
thing,
do?
that's right.
Animals, yeah, and still you love all your animals, and
I
they're
do.
all gorgeous.
I still have pythons.
So I'm sure you do. You made a choice about becoming a cadet journalist.
I did, under the auspices of the great Ita Buttrose, who was just amazing to work with, I have to say. And I really think in terms of editors, there is nobody quite like Ita who knows her readers and just is completely on point with all of that. But I mean, she was amazing back in those days. This was 1980 on the Daily Telegraph, Daily Mirror, and she would sweep through that newsroom, and it was like the parting of the Red Sea. Everybody skedaddled out of the way of Miss Buttrose, and you had to call her Miss Buttrose. And she was just an absolute force of nature. So it was intriguing all of those decades on to then get to work with her on Studio 10 for those 4.5, nearly 5 years before
And that
she
was
decided to
a
move
joyous reunion?
Yeah, it was lovely. I'd always liked Ida. She was always extremely encouraging. She was a very generous woman in every sense. And as I say, she was without doubt a force of nature. I would not like to be on the bad side of her.
Oh, no.
Personally,
no.
I never have.
And well before her time too, really.
Oh, totally.
In a man's world.
That's right. I mean, for a woman to do what she did, when you think back to starting Cleo magazine, you think back to the glory days of the Australian Women's Weekly, when it was a weekly, then it became a monthly, and we couldn't ever quite figure that out.
So you couldn't call it that.
No, you couldn't call it that. Well, that's, I think, why they stuck with the weekly.
Yeah.
You know?
And Kerry Packer really did admire her. He did really.
I think Sir Frank Packer did too.
Yes. So that was good.
She got to know a few Packers along
absolutely.
the way.
Absolutely.
And you'd be mad not to, quite frankly.
That's
wouldn't you?
right. That's right.
Without putting too fine a point on it, which we never do. Certainly not you side, sadly.
Oh no, I've come full mount here.
Good, lovely.
Yeah, I might change it. I might mix it up. Look out, Steve. Brace yourself.
He is braced, look at him.
I might side tap there. Now,
Those loins are well and truly girded, I'm suspecting. As Elvis's always were.
Don't you tell.
That's what I do, true confessions
I
of a
know,
shameless gossip.
I know.
And I'm totally shameless, I'll tell the lot.
Steve's a gentleman.
That was never a question.
I know, and he's raising beautiful gentleman sons as well, I might add. They're gorgeous.
Of course.
Now,
It's you we've got to watch.
I know. Now, going back to Ita,
Yes.
God bless her, she's
Right.
now in a very important position
She is.
in her world.
Chairperson
her
of the
career,
ABC.
yes. And she's, I'm sure we all know she's of a certain age, isn't she? We all know
is she?
that, yes.
I've never asked.
No, well, we won't ask, but she she's definitely of a certain age, but I just want to say it is amazing that she took that up.
I think she's always up for a challenge.
Yes, yes.
And she does so much good work, and I think she adores the national broadcaster, always has. And she is in there.
And of course, for those of you who do remember, it's a few years ago now, we had Ita as a very special guest at an Alva banquet. I think it's about 5 or 6 years ago now. And this is my little thank you again to Craig, all those wonderful people that we presented Alva, Jessica Rowe, Ita, Denise Drysdale, Miss Helena, Katie Little, is all through Craig being so supportive. So please give him a big clap for that. No, people need to know how it all happens. They need to know, don't they, how the system works. I mean, it would be impossible. It would take months for me to secure Ita on my own. So when you've got someone that just goes straight to the
Well, I'm glad I could be your viaduct in that situation.
Oh, viaduct away,
to expedite things.
Viaduct away.
Straight to the grand lady.
Absolutely. Now, we've got some wonderful stories that Craig's going to tell us about. The first one, though, that I'd like to start with is the story about Doris Day and her best girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
Because you'll love it.
And this is kind of for you, Mary, though you, of course, know a lot of this story, I'm sure. But really, as I tell you this, it goes to show that dreams really can come true. And I'm talking of a wonderful woman who lives in Sydney in Campsie called Joan Barr. And Joan was a milliner. She made hats years ago and is a great devotee of radio. And she heard me on 2 back in the day when 2 existed and was interesting, and not sport, or whatever it is now. And she heard me on radio talking about Doris Day. And she got in touch, wrote a beautiful letter saying, I love what you had to say about Doris Day, Craig, love you on the radio with George and Paul and whoever else. And I just want you to know I'm one of Doris's dearest friends. And she enclosed a photograph of she and Doris Day, and then she told me the amazing story. And the amazing story is simply that many years ago, back in the 50s, there was a competition, Win a Trip to Hollywood, to meet Doris Day. And I think it was run by Lux Soap. And she bought all the Lux Soap she could buy and entered the competition. It's like filling in the Logies, isn't it?
Yes, again, before the internet.
That's right. And so she did all of that, and she didn't win, sadly. She was heartbroken, but then I think her sister won the lottery, or her brother won. Somebody won the lottery and said, there you are. You take that trip to Hollywood, Joan. It's what you've always wanted to do. She'd studied where Doris Day, through the fan magazines, would go and have her lunch and ride her bike to some cafe in Beverly Hills. So there was Joan in Beverly Hills at that cafe, and in walked Doris Day. Now, they'd struck up a pen palship because Doris and Joni was writing to Doris and making her little embroidered hankies and things like that, and Doris Gracious was writing back. So they've got this pen pal thing happening, and there was Joan. She needed to steel herself, but she swept up to Doris and said, Doris, I just wanted to say it's Joni Barr here from Australia. Oh my God, Joni, what are you doing here? Well, I just thought maybe I might have run into you. And they did. And Doris said, what are you doing tomorrow? And she said, well, nothing. And she said, I'm sending a limo for you, honey. I'm making a movie with Rock Hudson. I'd love you to come to the set and to see how it all goes. And that then became the start of an amazing friendship that continued right up until Doris's last breath 3 weeks ago. And it was interesting because we know the fabulous Melinda Schneider was doing a tribute to the great Doris Day. And Melinda and I were talking, and I told her the story of Joan Barr, and I put the two of them in touch. And that allowed Melinda a great insight, and I think through Joan, is that right, Mary? That Doris was then able to hear some of Melinda's fabulous interpretations of Doris's wonderful songs. So you see, you just never know in life, do you, where things will take you. And to go to Joni's beautiful little apartment, which is all decked out in pink, and endless photos of Doris signed to Joan, and she kept every phone message that Doris would leave her when Joan wasn't there, and amazing, absolutely amazing.
It's a great story, isn't it? It's a great story.
And she wound up at dinner at Doris's over many, many trips, sitting next to Clint Eastwood, sitting next to Ronald Reagan. I mean, she just thought, I'm this funny little girl from Campsie in Sydney. and cannot believe here I am. On that side is Clint Eastwood, and on that side could have been Charles Bronson or Ronald Reagan. Just an amazing thing.
And
so
that
you
shows,
never know.
That shows the true character of Doris Day, really, doesn't it? A really honest, genuine...
A very gracious, gorgeous person.
Very caring, honest person. That's right. Now, we had a lovely story yesterday about somebody here who snuck into Cher's dressing room. But, it was quite scandalous. So
you'd be mad not to, really, wouldn't you, give them the chance?
Quite scandalous. So I feel we need to talk about Angela Lansbury today, don't we?
Right, you want to move away from Didn't nick a tea bag.
I know. He was thieving in Cher's dressing room.
I know, but I felt absolved yesterday, opening my heart and sharing all of this. And
yes, you
slipped
were
in
absolved.
there, tried on a fur coat and a wig, and I did nick one of her tea bags on my way up. This was at half time. She was in the lotus position in her other dressing room, inhaling something fabulous to keep her voice going. Angela Lansbury. Who loves Angela Lansbury?
Oh, gorgeous.
Now, they're too much like Doris Day.
Gorgeous.
An absolute true star, and I was blessed to interview her at her home in Los Angeles last year.
There, didn't you?
Yes.
Have you seen the Mary Poppins? There's that beautiful cameo in the
Mary
Poppins movie. Oh,
and she
beautiful.
sings.
Yes, sorry, darling.
Absolutely gorgeous. But here is a woman much like Doris Day, who is just so gorgeous, opens her own front door, doesn't require hair and makeup, does it herself, makes you cups of tea. I mean, just astonishing, much like Doris Day, old school, totally charming, absolutely genuine, no fuss. I tell you what, some of the so-called young stars of today, with their retinue of assistants and laundry lists of demands, could learn a thing or two from the likes of the great Angela Lansbury.
Absolutely.
And that's so true.
That's right. I don't use hair and makeup artists either. This is how I wake up.
Of course. You know what I discovered in her backyard in her home, and she'd been living there for 30... No, I didn't. No. And if I did, I wouldn't tell her because she's 92 at that point in time, and sometimes you don't like to scare the horses. But she has a macadamia nut tree in her back garden. She had no idea of this because her gardeners kept coming in, and she loved macadamias, especially the chocolate-covered ones. But the gardeners come in and they clip that poor macadamia tree into something like a poor demented poodle. So she had no idea. It never got to yield the nuts. And I said, you've got a macadamia tree in your garden, Dame Angela. You really require a macacracker for Christmas. Oh, what? A macacracker, darling. They crack macadamias. And you got the I took her out and showed her where the So I said, just make sure that your gardeners don't clip the thing into something that does look like the leg of a poodle, and let it all fully extend itself. Let it all hang out, and then you'll get the nuts. Which I think at 92 is something she deserves, don't you?
Absolutely. Nuts in a python. It's fabulous.
And if she dipped them in chalky, those nuts, I mean, she'd be in Nirvana, wouldn't she?
Oh my goodness.
We think.
That's right,
No,
she would. Now,
not
who's seen the Rocket Man movie? Have any of you seen Rocket Man? Did we love it? Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Now, we were talking about this afterwards, and at the after party.
Yes, that's
We
right.
talked about
Yesterday.
that at the after party yesterday.
Of course, you'd be mad not to.
And just an incredible movie, I think so. I mean, just because I think so doesn't mean everybody does. And if they're not rehearsing a Broadway version now, there's something going on. It's been written, I think, to just drop onto the music theatre stage. However, it was interesting, as I said to Craig, I've read a lot and watched a lot about Elton's early life. And it was interesting to see in the movie the take that the movie took on Elton's relationship with his mother. Now, I don't know, most of people are aware that his father didn't agree with, this performing rubbish. But I was led to believe by all this information that his mother was. Not the case in the movie. So where do you go to find out the truth? The scandalous gossip.
Well, there you are. It's in the book. But I'll tell you now because you've asked the question. I had Elton's mum and stepdad to lunch one day, and they were fascinating, Sheila and Fred. And in the movie, of course, you get the feeling very much so that Sheila was a gold digger, wanting Elton to buy her a home in Mallorca or somewhere. That's right, and wanting money and taking advantage of his hospitality and whatever else and berating him. And I thought, this is so counter to the wonderful woman that I met at home for lunch, who was gracious. She had an enormous diamond ring on, something that would have had Elizabeth Taylor Pegreen with envy. It was like a diamond akin to Ayers Rock. You know, you need God knows how many muscle men to keep her hand elevated. And I said, Sheila, that ring is... Oh, yes, I know, darling. Elton bought it for me, insisted I have it, and I didn't really want a ring that big, and it's all ridiculous. And I don't have a safe to keep it in, but that's that. And then she was talking about how Elton had bought her this amazing home in Beverly Hills, which she'd been to once because she didn't want it. She much preferred her very simple, very ordinary home outside of London, where she and Fred lived. And so it was just interesting to see that take in the movie, and just to see this woman who had such adoration for her son, so proud of his achievements, didn't want the huge ring, but she didn't have a safe to put it in. So the best thing to do was just to keep wearing it, because if somebody wanted to steal it, they'd need to chop a hand off, and didn't want the home in Beverly Hills, and only went there once because it was too big and too cold, didn't want all the servants and whatever else. But, I mean, of course, that Rocket Man movie is really an homage to Elton's amazing life. It's not a biopic that needs to be accurate, but it's intriguing, though, that after Sheila died, and they'd had a big falling out, and they'd made up shortly before she died. Even, I think, at her 80th birthday party, she hired an Elvis impersonator, and then hired Kiki Dee to come and sing Don't Go Breaking My Heart. And that, I think, so shook Elton up that they then repaired whatever riff they had, and they had made up before she passed away. But anyway, so, I mean, the movie is fascinating, but I wouldn't believe all that bit about the mother.
No, from the horse's mouth here. It's just...
I know, Mr. Ed in another line.
they had enough scandal to work with his father. Why did they need to go to the mother as
well? And the drink and the drugs.
Oh, and all of that. There's enough.
And all those young men, all that shocked me. I couldn't believe it.
I bet it did. It was shocking, wasn't it?
Well, I'm
did you close your eyes?
Smelling salts for the Liberace movie.
I know.
I just know what they're going to say there.
Oh, I know.
Unbelievable.
Take a pair of dark glasses, darling.
No, I just avoided it.
Tell us about who would be your most, if there is one, you might need more than one, your most favourite interview or celebrity or... Is there more
I would
than
have
one?
to say, yes, there's so many of them. I've been very blessed that most people I
yeah.
chat to are absolutely lovely and gorgeous and fabulous. I'd have to say Angela Lansbury, just because she was so fabulous, and a mind as sharp as a tack, an enormous body of work, so gracious about everybody, which for somebody like me was not really fabulous. You'd love to hear the dirt, wouldn't you? What was Elizabeth Taylor really like? Well, honey, let me tell you. But it wasn't like that at all, but genuinely so.
Yeah, that's lovely
just
that
beautiful.
she is. And that little cameo in the Mary Poppins movie, I can't remember what it's called now, the movie.
She was the balloon lady.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Very surprising. It's lovely. All right, so who's the least favourite? Who's the one that you just went, oh my Lord, get me out of here?
Yes. Look, it's a surprise, actually, and Brian, you might know, being a regular in the audience at Studio 10. Do you remember, I think he's been there once or twice, over the 5 or 6 years or whatever. Do you remember when we had the so-called king of British comedy, Julian Clary? Oh, that was the day you weren't there. Well, that was interesting because
That hit the headlines. I forgot about that.
Well, we all thought that we were beside ourselves with thrill and joy, thinking, oh my gosh, he's funny as a fit. How wonderful will this be? Julian Clary, we won't stop laughing. Well, we didn't start laughing because he was like this catatonic lump. I'm not sure what side of the bed he got out of. He clearly fell and lost his funny bone and any sense of being a showbiz, razzle-dazzle, upbeat, fabulous, smiley person. He was on the show supposed to be for the whole 3 hours as guest host. He walked out after about an hour and 10 minutes or so, just got up and said, I'm bored, and basically left. And he was in Australia on the show to promote his shows at the State Theatre. I mean, it was just the most extraordinary experience. Anything you said to him, he just ignored you. He was so ungracious.
Disrespectful.
Oh, completely. But it's interesting, having spoken to other people about this, lovely Mike Hammond on 2WS FM, I think that's it, I get mixed up, everything's FM these days. He interviewed Julian Clary in London and said they had to terminate the interview because this man just said yes, no, and wasn't interested, gave no fabulous stories, and he said there's no point in continuing. You've clearly got nothing to say, you're bored, so we'll just turn the cameras off now. Off he went, yeah. So why would you do that?
Oh, well, they don't.
You
know
are
what they're
fabulous
doing.
entertainers. You know it's the business of show. Why would you behave like
And
that?
they're wanting to put bums on seats at their show.
Well, he was certainly a bum, and I'm glad I didn't
All right, I got
occupy
one more.
one of his seats.
I've
that's
got
for sure.
one more. Now, this is me. Please indulge me. What about Boy George? Have you had anything to do with Boy
I've
George?
met him. I don't think anything like Julian Clary.
No.
I think Julian Clary is an extremely poor man's version of Boy George.
Yes,
And I
yes.
say extremely poor.
Yes, he's really hitting his stride on The Voice. Not that I watch it that much, but
Well, there's
he's
the
been
biopic coming
very,
too about
yes,
Boy George.
Yeah,
which-
and I mean, he's still here, so he's still around.
Yes, I'm going to be shocked by that biopic too. I've got a feeling there might be a bit of something
bit of
there,
that.
don't you
Well,
think?
my girlfriend-
Behind that mascara, you just know there's
You
something.
never know. My girlfriend
No,
Gary,
you do know.
those of you who know me well know girlfriend Gary is a flight attendant, and he's had Boy George on a few flights.
And?
Well, it's you can't.
Yes, what are you trying to
no,
say,
you
Susan?
you can't turn Gary off about how rude and everything Boy George is on a flight.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, snap your garter and call
When
me
he's
Ethel.
being himself. I know. So,
things you learn of a Tuesday
girlfriend
afternoon.
Gary can be a bit of a bitch too, so I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
maybe
it's a
it
bit
was
of-
a collision of bitches, who knows?
Could, well, and that is quite on the cards, you know, but there was some politician girlfriend Gary doesn't like either because he didn't use a handkerchief on the plane, and I
dear.
can't remember who it is now. Anyway,
Who was that?
I can't remember, I'll have to text you.
Well, you're no good.
I know, it was somebody that...
Holy
Oh, excuse me,
Toledo.
Madame La Fairy Floss
Yes, you know Helen?
in her Russian hat.
I just wanted.
You look like Omar Sharif, darling.
I just wanted to.
In another life.
She looks like Sonia Henny.
No, you look like Elizabeth Taylor in
Excuse
Ash
me
Wednesday.
1 minute about Julian Cleary.
Yes.
I would like you to say, because in our room we've got our wonderful Mary Schneider. Now Julian is her greatest fan. Julian does shows all over the world to packed audiences. So when you go into waiting for the show to begin of Julian Cleary, you will always hear only Mary Schneider's records.
Well, we never said he didn't have taste. There you go.
That's right.
He mightn't have grace, but he certainly has taste.
So just,
There you
yeah,
go.
there you go. And he probably just doesn't like doing interviews, and you think, well, why do you agree to do them? Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Is
the
there
dog
someone
barked
else?
and the caravan moved on.
That's
didn't it,
right,
really?
that's right. Now, I want to know about Paul Sorvino, because there
Oh.
was alcohol involved.
Oh my gosh, Paul Sorvino. Who remembers Paul Sorvino from the movie?
Fabulous. He's
You,
fabulous.
of course. Oh, you do, Steve, as
Fabulous.
well. Well, he was a movie mobster in a whole bunch of things. Goodfellas.
Yes, that was his shtick, wasn't it?
It was his shtick, yes. And of course, he was in Dick Tracy with Madonna. Didn't like Madonna at all. Found her very difficult. Maybe actually Madonna was Julian Clary in another life. Do you think so?
Or what?
We shouldn't say that because obviously,
Yeah.
Julian Clary is Mary's biggest fan.
Yes, it's the whole interview thing. I mean, there's a lot of people like that don't
Oh, that's
like
right. I mean, they just clam up.
Yes, they just can't be bothered
Oh,
or whatever.
right, that is
Anyway,
quite shocking,
back to
really.
Paul Sorvino
Oh,
and
look.
the Goodfellas cocktail.
He was just a remarkable man to chat to, talking about his amazing career. I think about 300 movies and so forth. But we're done, are we?
No,
Yes,
it's
we
all
are.
right,
We're
it's
done.
all right. I've got my eye on him.
Oh, are you sure?
Off you go with the
I feel as though I'm
cocktail.
rambling here and these stories aren't that
No,
interesting.
I'm on it.
Move on to somebody else.
No, I'm on
Paul's
it.
not that interesting.
Is he not that interesting?
No,
All
I'll
right,
move
we'll
on.
move on. I've got one question that I didn't.
Yeah, you asked.
I didn't ask you yesterday.
Oh, okay.
If you yourself,
Oh, yes.
the scandalous Craig Bennett, if you had a superpower, or you could miraculously get a superpower.
Oh, yes.
Now, this is any genre of your life or world or whatever. What would your superpower be?
Oh, I'm not quite sure what that question means. It seemed to go on forever. And I got a bit confused.
If you could gain a superpower to
Yes.
work for good or evil
Oh,
in the
yes.
world, what would your superpower that you would like to have? Some people say they'd like to be invisible, so they can.
Oh.
Some people say.
Look, I think, frankly, having witnessed you sitting side saddle on these brand new stools, I mean, I think that's akin to a superpower, and I want that. You do it with such elegance. Being invisible, I think I am most of the time. Yeah, that's it. Oh my gosh. Look, just so long as the cape fitted, I suppose. And maybe the cow.
We've had,
That
for those
could
of
be
you who've
appealing.
come to Alvin, we've had some really interesting answers to that
And
question.
what would be if you were answering that question?
Oh, if I was answering the question, my superpower would be Oh, now.
Just be careful about the mirror.
No,
in the
no,
end,
it's
you
just,
know?
it's
Oh, you're getting a hot flash.
no. My superpower would be to just take all the illness and sickness and sadness away from
Oh,
me.
of course, I'm with you on that. Let's do
Sorry,
it together.
Paget, look at that. What happened then?
Let's do it together.
He's about the only person that can do this to me. Oh my God.
There you go.
Just to
She's
take-
done it to herself. I think they call that onanism, don't they?
You know, with what we do, with what myself and my Clive and Chris have done our whole career, and now what we do with Alva and what Glenn does, we see a lot of sadness and sickness and ill health and loneliness. And my superpower always would be just to have a magic wand to just make everybody happy.
Well, let's do that
Oh,
together.
sorry about that. And I've had a coffee and everything. Where did that come from, Gail? Don't tell anyone. Oh,
No, it's our secret.
I know, don't put that in the book.
No.
And she's a big...
No, it's for the next one.
Oh, good grief. So that would be my superpower, darling. That
I
would
think
be
it's
mine.
a brilliant one to have.
Oh dear. Now back to business. We're all here about this wonderful book. Hold it up. Show the brand. Show the brand. Now you're selling
Very
it today.
understated cover. Too.
Yes, it's very
Yes.
understated, but it's your signature smile.
It is. Jeannie Little taught me that look.
Yes.
She
Does
did.
it work every
Yeah, it
time?
works. You don't wind up with any wrinkles. Open your mouth extremely wide and sort of crane your neck up like that, and the years just melt away.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely
Oh my goodness.
melt away.
Oh, we better practice. Everybody, ready, set, go. That is
fabulous.
wonderful.
I saw you doing that, Ross Hutchison.
Do you want another one?
Yeah,
ready,
go on.
set, go.
That's it.
Now, what are the books selling for today, darling?
Oh, look, usually $29.99. Don't know why. Why not just simply make it 30? Who's got 1 cent? But today, the extra special price for the Debonair's, $25 round.
Lovely.
There
That
you
is
go.
very lovely. Now, where are we selling the books from? Over here?
I've no idea.
Is that
Susan,
right, Di? Over here? We've got the books over there. So please, everybody, just hold your breath for a minute. Let Craig get over there, or whoever's taking the money, and we'll get those books on the go.
It's 250 pages of unmitigated gossip and scandal,
It absolutely
and you'll know everyone in it. In fact, you might be in it.
Oh, that'll make them buy it. Sensible strategy there, darling.
No, there are some people in this room that are in the book.
And Craig, you're going to sign the books today?
I'm very happy.
Craig will sign the book, and if we want a photo. But what I would like to ask you, because I am a control freak, everybody to go over there, not mishmosh around, because if you mishmosh around, it all takes 3 times the time.
After lunch, though, your fish will go cold.
After lunch, your fish will go cold. After lunch, everybody,
There you
on
go.
your words. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a very big, big thank you and a gorgeous big round of applause to the one and only Craig Bennett.
Thank you for having me. Love the Debonaires and love you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. Yes. Thank you very much for
People
today.
brought Stephen Harris to Australia years ago, you know. Now there's an interesting chap.
Ladies and gentlemen, there they are, Susie and Craig. A big round of applause for them, everybody. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Craig. Listen, we'll be selling these books after lunch. So we're having lunch right now.